Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Gunnerblog. James, good morning to you.
Good morning, Andrew. How you doing?
I'm all right. You know, it's been a beautiful weekend here in terms of weather in Ireland, and as everybody knows, the only thing you can do when the weather is good in Ireland is, well, drink lots of beer and cocktails and wine. So I'm feeling it a bit today on a Monday morning, but apart from that, I can have no complaints. How about you?
I'm good. Yeah, I think slightly fatigued, and no one slept well in our very hot flat overnight. But there's lots on the Arsenal agenda to sort of energise me for this podcast.
Yeah, that's true. There's a fair bit going on. What's happening with all these like Sunday drops? You know, last Sunday it was all Zubamendi, and then there was something else going on, and then this Sunday we're getting a striker, and I don't know.
It's all for the podcast, Andrew.
Thank you, David Ornstein, for sorting that out.
What can I say? He's a pal. Yeah, no, I mean, it's good. It's good. You know, it would be very annoying if we'd recorded this 24 hours ago. Yeah,
it would be out of date even more quickly than our stuff goes out of date, usually. You know?
Yeah, this will be out of date by the time you're listening, I'm sure.
Yeah. By the time we finish this, there'll be another.
We'll have bought 3 more Chelsea players. Every Chelsea left back is signing for Arsenal.
Listen.
That's a horrible thought.
It is.
Mark Cucurella.
We can't have that. I cannot sanction that buffoonery. Just cannot.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, there is a lot happening and a lot going on, and a lot that's going to take place this week, it seems, before the team and everyone goes out on the tour to Singapore and to Hong Kong for some preseason games. It feels like things have accelerated in order to get these guys ready and on the tour. I'm not sure if Madueke will go on the tour, will he? Because he'll probably need a holiday or something, but maybe they'll figure something out different there. But obviously the big story is that an agreement has been reached with Sporting over the signing of Viktor Gyokeres. Big Vic in, Big Ben. It's not chiming for him this summer. So, yeah. So, I mean, the striker. The striker. We got a striker, James.
Yeah, it happened. It finally happened. Well, sorry. It's happening.
Yeah.
Let's get our tenses right. It's happening. And we are. There's some sort of very specific wording, isn't there, about it, which is like, we're in the final stages of finalising the deal.
We're mixing the concrete to get the concrete on the pathway to finalising the deal in principle with the concrete.
Yes. I think effectively the broad scope of the deal is agreed, and it's probably the very nitty gritty in terms of when certain payments arrive or on what criteria they arrive. But effectively, it's a done deal. And obviously, the player side has been done for a little bit of time. And he's played his part in making this happen, forcing this through. And I think Arsenal will probably be pretty happy with the deal that they've got and the numbers involved. I mean, you know, it's not that much more than we paid for Noni Madueke.
Well, there you go. There's a discussion I think we might have a bit later on in the show, because there's been, well, quite a reaction to that deal in particular. But yeah, to spend 50 million plus whatever it is on a striker with some add-ons, there was a suggestion that the agent waived his fees in order to get this deal through.
They're a charitable bunch, agents.
Yeah, we know that. We know that. I
think I'd be staggered if he doesn't do all right somewhere along the line in this thing.
For sure. I mean, it does strike me that maybe there was, you know, an element of his fee might have been waived or whatever it was. But yeah, nobody's working for free in football, are they?
Well, I suppose, you know, agents on a deal often get paid by the player, but they also get paid by the club. And they don't actually get paid by the player. The club often pays them on the player's behalf.
Yeah.
And the player just has to pay the tax on that, which they're always delighted about, in my experience. And so he will have made some money on this. Has he made maybe less than he might have envisaged? Perhaps. But I think, yeah, what are the numbers saying? £54.8 million as the kind of fixed fee, a further £8.6 million in potential add-ons. feels like a very reasonable price. I mean, it's kind of not, I mentioned Noni Madueke. I mean, what did we pay for Alexander Lacazette way back when?
Yeah, it was 50 million at least, wasn't it, for Lacazette? And that was back in the summer of whenever that was.
56 million for Aubameyang in 2018.
So it would have been the summer of 2017 then when we bought Lacazette.
Yeah, that's 46.5 for Lacazette. So this is a fee, I think, that sort of, sits alongside those two quite neatly. And when you compare or consider the inflation in the market since then, I think Arsenal have got themselves a pretty good deal here.
Does it make it easier to live with what you might consider a less good deal when you do get another good deal in on top of that? Can you look at things in that kind of isolation, or can you compartmentalize them? I saw people. We had a question. I apologize. I think it was on the Discord. Oh, yeah, it came from Gary on the Discord. He said, if we paid Chelsea 10 million less for Madueke, but instead paid 10 million more for Kepa, would you feel better about the Madueke signing, even though it's the same total amount of money going to Chelsea? He says, I know I would. It doesn't really work like that, but no, you can see how people
I would. Yeah, I can say hand on heart, I think I would. And that's how the club must look at it. They look at the totality of business as compared to the budget. Obviously, every deal is different, and I can sort of say in a pithy way, it's about what we paid for Madueke, but there are reasons that Madueke has cost more money. I think we'll get onto that because, it's its own conversation, isn't it? But yeah, I do think Gyökeres looks like a really, really reasonable deal, and I think probably Arsenal will feel that their strategy has paid dividends here in terms of, keeping their options open for a relatively long period of time, exploring different deals. Who knows? Perhaps that's what pushed Viktor Gyokeres to really make his case and agitate for the move and say he was prepared to do whatever it took. And it's worked out.
Any thoughts on that? I know he was due to report for pre-season training on Saturday and didn't. Where do you stand on players? People will say from this side, well, he really pushed for the move. He really wants to join Arsenal. That's great. Well done to him. But on the flip side, if one of our players behaved like that, given what we've seen in terms of some of the reaction to a player who's done nothing wrong, right? Whatever you think of the Madueke deal, he hasn't done anything wrong, and yet it provoked this kind of reaction. Is it relevant at all? Do you worry about it? Do you think it was just, well, look, this is what it takes at the business end of a deal like this? There's no point him going back to Sporting when he wants to join Arsenal like a day or 2 days later. It's all pretty much done and dusted. So it's not like he's been out on strike for weeks and weeks.
No, and there's a pretty good history of Arsenal players going on strike to get their moves, or non-Arsenal players as they were at the time. I mentioned to you in a text the other day, Sylvain Wiltord was one that was, I think, much more, a bit more attritional and sort of more problematic in terms of his relationship with, I think it was Bordeaux at the time that he came across from. But and in Gyökeres' defence, the reason for the strike is that he believes an agreement was reneged upon. That there wasn't a deal. I think it was for 60 million euros plus 10 million euros he could go. And he was told that and sort of shook hands on it, as it were.
Get it in writing.
Always get it in writing. And he felt that was not being honoured. And so he felt a bit betrayed by that, hence the strike. So there is a bit of mitigation. And also, Andrew, he's desperate to come. He's 27 until such a time as he'll be 28.
But that'll be next year, so it's fine. He's only just gone 27, so
okay,
he's still 27.
But this is a guy who's had an astonishingly productive time in Lisbon, but he's had a bit of a journeyman career before that. He's had spells at Brighton, at Swansea, at Coventry, St. Pauli. And for him at this age to get this move to a club of this size, competing for the biggest prizes, it is too good an opportunity for him to allow to pass by.
Sure.
And so not only do I understand his position, I think as an Arsenal fan, you're kind of excited by that. You're kind of like, well, he really wants to be here. And that's what we want to hear, isn't it?
Sure, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I'm not against what he did, really. You know, but if the shoe is on the other foot, I think we view these kinds of scenarios a little bit differently. You know, albeit, you know, we've lost players down the years who we maybe didn't want to lose, and it's difficult to come to terms with that. And from a sporting perspective as well, I think, you know, they're champions the last 2 years in no small part because of the goals that this guy scored. So I get why they were, you know, holding out for as much as possible for their best player, basically. So
yeah, exactly. And clearly, like, there's been a sort of time pressure element to this. I mean, Arsenal have obviously wanted to get it done before the tour. They probably have made the player aware of that, so he wants to be there as well. And I think that probably explains some of the kind of antipathy we might have observed in the negotiations, that it was a bit fraught and there was a bit of pressure to get it done quickly. But they've arrived in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, it is the big decision of the summer, isn't it? Where, you know, we've been desperate for the striker and other deals have happened and people have been, you know, happy enough with those deals and happy enough with those signings. But I think as long as this one was undone, there was that fear that it was not going to happen. You know, I met a neighbour of mine walking down the road the other day. He's an Arsenal fan. He was like, "Are they going to buy a striker?" I was going, "Yeah, I think so. I think they'll buy the Gyökeres guy." He's going, "Yeah, I don't know. They said they were going to buy one last year. They said they were going to buy one the year before." You know, so even though it's been pretty obvious, people, I think, have been waiting for this one to get over the line properly before being able to relax. And as much as football fans can relax these days, do you think this will release some of the low-level anxiety that's been permeating throughout this summer?
I think so. And again, it's not in isolation, right? It looks like it might be completed before tour, along with at least one, possibly two other transfers. You know, which, as I said to a colleague, I think at this point we're talking a spree, aren't we? This is a spree.
Yeah, I guess so. Because when you look at what we've got so far, I mean, I got the blog out this morning before the news about Cristhian Mosquera dropped, and the Zubamendi, Arrizabalaga, Norgard, Madueke, Gyökeres. Now Mosquera looks like he's going to be coming in. So that's 6 signings and probably an outlay, you know, in the ballpark of £200 million, there or thereabouts. That's a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
It is a lot of money to spend.
Higuain done. Rooney next.
Blimey.
Arsenal Twitter heritage then. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of the incoming side done. I wouldn't even say, you know, that to use the cliche that the checkbook is closed. I think there'll probably be a bit of flexibility, like in terms of what happens in the remainder of the market. I know people are still hoping for a wide player. I think there's a possibility of that, but perhaps later in the window and maybe depending on what other business comes in. But yeah, Arsenal have really, I think they've done well to get to assemble this clutch of signings ahead of kind of the significant portion of pre-season. And, you know, I'm sure it was always the plan, but I can't help but think that fixture list draw in the middle of June really must have sharpened minds. When you look at the start that we've got. Yeah,
maybe so. And look, we talked about having the striker in and how important that was. You know, that was, of all the signings that we were going to make this summer, that was the one where we absolutely had to get it done as quickly as possible, to get that guy settled in and know his new teammates and, find out what he can bring to the team. But when you look at it, at the back, the goalkeeper's sorted. It looks like the defence is going to be sorted. Midfield, 2 players have come in there in Christian Norgard and Martin Zubimendi. We've got the striker now. Who am I forgetting? Oh, of course, Madueke as well, to add some depth to the wide areas, which is an interesting one. And we can come back to that discussion and maybe some of the reaction to that as well. And like you, I feel like the market might dictate what happens next. If, there's some interest in Trossard, for example, and he goes, then you've got to react to that and bring somebody in. But I think for the most part, they wanted the core of those signings done for pre-season anyway, for a good chunk of pre-season. It looks like that's going to happen. I suppose the other thing just to maybe mention about this is that whatever plan Arsenal might have or might have had, when it comes to transfers, you are dealing with third parties and other elements which make it difficult sometimes to implement those plans in the way that you might envisage, right? Mm-hmm. So clubs playing a bit of hardball over a player. We haven't had too much of that. I mean, the Zubimendi, Kepa, Norgard all seem to have gone through pretty easily, without too much difficulty. But at the same time, you are dependent on getting everybody on board, from the selling club to the player to the agents to, to all of that. So there is an element of difficulty in that regard.
Yeah, and I think most people are pretty pleased with the business that Arsenal have done, but you don't always get your top targets. You don't always get your number ones in each position. I mean, what would it have meant for Arsenal's window if they had got Joan Garcia instead of Kepa and paid an extra, 20 million euros, whatever it would be in transfer fee? What would it have done for our window if Dean Howson had decided he wanted to join Arsenal instead of Real Madrid? And we'd had to drop 50 million quid on him. It's a fluid, mobile enterprise, and it's something that changes and adapts by necessity. I actually think, I just picked those 2 deals off the top of my head, but I actually think we've probably ended up in a better place in terms of sort of the spread of spending, and maybe there being a bit more focus on the attacking part of the pitch. Mm-hmm. Than it might otherwise have been. So, yeah, very, very, very interesting and exciting for us because, pre-season, a lot of the time it starts and you're watching the same old faces and you're thinking, oh, bloody hell, we're going to be waiting until deadline day to have a complete squad. Whereas, there'll be a lot of eyes on these friendlies in Singapore and Hong Kong because, all being well, we should see a number of new faces. Yeah, which is always really exciting. And I think, your point about, it's not just what difference it would have made to our summer, let's say, if we bought Joan Garcia. It's what difference that would have made to the whole narrative around the goalkeeping position next season too. That's true. There's clear delineation, I think, between David Raya and Kepa, and I think Kepa is a good deal. I really do. At 5 million quid for a really experienced number 2 goalkeeper, can't argue with that. 30 million quid on a young up-and-comer who, could turn out to be brilliant, but then you're having to deal with those questions week in, week out. Who's going to play? Who's the number 1? Can you play 2 I'll sub a goalkeeper again. Yeah. We could do without that. I think that, there is an element when you're bringing in, let's say 6 players, it might be 7 players. 7 new players arriving at Arsenal this summer. I think there are elements where you need to maintain a bit of stability when you're thinking about how to put your squad together, rather than creating more instability, even if it is a player maybe you really like. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. What else should we talk about? I mean, should we talk about Noni Madueke? Yeah, why not? Why not? Because that's happening. I mean, he'll be gutted. He missed out on celebrating with Donald Trump and Gianni Infantino last night. Yeah, he'll be devastated about that, I imagine. But yeah, he left the Chelsea camp ahead of the Club World Cup final, and I think back in London, sort of completing the formalities of that transfer. As you mentioned, I don't quite know as yet what his plan is, because he's obviously due a week or 10 days off.
At least, surely. He's been playing since all last season and all through the summer because of this stupid fucking Club World Cup bullshit. So, I think he and every player deserves and needs a bit of a holiday and a bit of a break. But it's how much we're prepared to give him or how much he might want to go away. He might want to get stuck in and get going really quickly as well. So
I'm sure he will. And I'm sure, listen, it may be one of those where the club say to him, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but you're better to us having had a break. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
They need to look after him too. And if he does have that eagerness or enthusiasm, I wonder how much of that is connected to the reaction to the deal. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever way you want to slice it, he arrives at Arsenal as a man with a bit of a point to prove.
Yes. I mean, I do think scrutiny of the deal itself shouldn't lie on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some of the reaction, and some of it has been pretty unedifying, to say the least. But he's not responsible. Whatever you think of him as a player or what he might bring to the team, he is not responsible for the fee that Arsenal paid Chelsea. Right? That's for Mikel Arteta and Andrea Berta, and for the executives, for the board. They're the ones that sanctioned that deal. And I think analysis of the player and where he fits and all that is completely fair. Completely fair. But it's also obvious people are not happy about the amount of money that's been paid for this guy.
Yeah. So
do you feel, I mean, look, I don't want to see what I don't want to do is sort of take the worst examples of the reaction that we've seen and that's been doing the rounds. And I'm sure people, if they're on social media, they've seen some stuff and they can hate it or like it or whatever. But I don't want to sort of hold that up as the cornerstone of Arsenal fan reaction to this, because I think you can look at the deal and think, that's quite a lot of money, but you can do it in a way that isn't like a huge backlash on the player himself,
Yeah, absolutely. And also, whenever you get a visceral reaction like that, there's always kind of a reaction to that reaction. So what's interesting is I'm now seeing a lot of people come out and sort of make the argument for Noni Madueke. I think the sort of stats and data community seem to be relatively behind the deal because he's got some really interesting numbers and data profile. I mean, Arsenal seem, from what I can gather, really content with what they've paid. I think they look at the sort of competitive landscape, the figures for people like Anthony Elanga or Mohamed Kudus or whoever it might be, the going rate, as it were, for a Premier League winger. And they feel that, as compared to that, 48.5 million rising to 52 for Madueke is a fairly reasonable deal. I'm a really rational fan. I think. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but I think I feel like I see things very rationally. It's very rare for me to be completely swept up in the emotion of something. Sure. But I do have a bit of emotional fatigue around signings from Chelsea. Full disclosure, and I can't quite shake that.
I think that's perfectly fair. Some people don't care. Some people are fed up with it to the extreme. Some people are somewhere in the middle of all that. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to feel however you want to feel about signing another player from Chelsea because, I don't think the track record has been that good down the years. So that's really where people get a bit fed up. Plus, they just don't like giving money to Chelsea because it's a horrendous organisation.
Yeah, they don't exactly need it. They'll find other creative ways to get it into their books. But so on this one, there are things about Madueke that I'm like, well, that could be interesting or exciting. He's a brilliant ball carrier. His dribbling numbers are really good. That's something that we lack. He's quick. He can run in behind as well as carrying the ball. He's a little bit chaotic at times or unpredictable in the final third, but that is a quality or an attribute that maybe Arsenal haven't had enough of at times. I think my sort of overriding feeling about it is just slightly one of confusion, because for all that I can see those positive qualities and what he may bring, I still find this a slightly odd Mikel Arteta choice. And I say that because as a player, he kind of reminds me of the sort of slightly more free-spirited, structureless players that Mikel Arteta has generally not gone for, you know.
A bit Nicolas Pepe, for example.
A bit, yeah. A bit. And like there were lots of us who thought Pepe had a role to play at Arsenal because he was kind of an antithesis to the manager's natural tendencies. And so I kind of have the same hope or feeling that Madueke could be that. But at the same time, I find it hard to align with the choices Arteta's made previously. And then there's just sort of character questions, you know, things around attitude. The incident at Chelsea last season where he, you know, we've signed 2 players from Chelsea who've got a bad track record over rowing over a penalty. And, you know, there was two moments last season where he was dropped by Chelsea. One, because Enzo Maresca said he wasn't training well enough. And a second time, not too long after that, where he just said technical reasons. And those, again, those just feel very un-Mikel. So, like, on the one hand, I can see how might provide something different. On the other, I find it hard to square with what has kind of been the manager's recruitment philosophy until this point.
Sure. I mean,
is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. You know, I think we've talked about this before maybe it was last week when we talked about it. I think this is I know what they say about market rate. It still feels expensive to me. That's all. I know it's not my money or anything like that. Maybe the counterpoint to the concerns that you have might be that as an environment, Chelsea is not a healthy place.
100%. And I think
right?
I think that's part of the appeal for why Madueke wants to make this change, you know.
Yeah.
He sees Arsenal as maybe, or the people around him see it as a better place for his development.
Yeah. Because, you know, we had stories about, you know, they had so many players are getting changed in the corridors and stuff like that for training. There just wasn't enough room because they bought all these players. So, listen, you know, I can't say for sure because I haven't heard anything firsthand. You know, questions about a player's character, when you see incidents like that, it does worry you a little bit, or it does give you a little bit of concern. But like I said, I do think the environment at Chelsea is not great, and some players maybe need that structure, maybe need that bit of discipline that can't really be applied at Chelsea. I mean, it was applied when Maresca disciplined him, I guess, but I don't know.
Listen, he continued to pick him until the end of the season. It's not like they fell out and it was irrevocable differences.
Yeah.
They actually had quite a good relationship, from what I understand, a bit of a kind of father-son thing where, you know, I think Maresca saw Madueke's potential and wanted to help him get there. So I'm not in any way insinuating that he's sort of a poisonous bad character.
Sure. Just that those things did happen.
Yeah, and they're on record, and it's not necessarily the glowing reference that you would associate. It's not the references you associate with the kind of players Arteta really likes. You know, your Odegaards and your Declan Rice or your Bukayo Sakas. You know, your sort of I don't want to say teacher's pet, but, you know, nice boys. A team of son-in-laws, wasn't it? As a Graham Souness once said. But yeah. I think another point I wonder about the price that I've been thinking about is, like, have we been a bit spoiled with wingers? Like, we haven't had to buy many wingers. You know, we bought Martinelli for 5 million. We didn't pay anything for Bukayo Saka. You know, we had Reece Nelson in the squad. We didn't pay anything for him. We got Leandro Trossard for 30 million, 25 million because he was coming up for 30 and at the end of his contract. Would this feel like a lot of money if, for example, we'd ended up doing the Mudryk deal? Like, does it feel a lot because we haven't bought in these areas? We just haven't done it.
Yeah, maybe. But, as you said, we haven't really bought strikers either, apart from Gabriel Jesus. So the Gyökeres deal looks quite aligned with that. I suppose the thing about it is, again, whatever concerns I have are kind of irrelevant, but the way people might frame it is, he's an England international, he's coming from another Premier League club, and he's got 7 years left on his contract, and that's kind of what you have to pay for a player like this. Whether you want to pay that or not, that would be the justification for that kind of price.
Yeah, the contract's definitely a factor. I mean, that's quite a deliberate strategy from Chelsea, isn't it? To protect the value of the asset. And that England tax is a thing. It was a thing for Ben White. It was a thing for Aaron Ramsdale. It was a thing for Declan Rice. Madueke's got himself 7 caps, I think, in about a year. So it's a thing for him too.
What about this then as another counterpoint, just to sort of broaden the discussion out?
Yeah.
Some people might say that you need to look a little bit beyond the Premier League when you're making signings. Now, we know Mikel Arteta loves a Premier League signing. He likes players who are ready and all of that.
He likes what he knows and he knows what he likes.
He's like Popeye, exactly. So it's
one of the many ways.
Those forearms, man. But people might say, hey, there's a whole world out there of football players. There's a lot of good, young, talented wingers who are fast and have a lot of potential and can develop, and who are 22, 23 like Madueke, who would be available from clubs in France or Spain or Germany or wherever.
Rennes. They're all at Rennes. That's where they make.
They've got the factory there. The other part of this Madueke thing is like, well, Bukayo Saka plays in that position. So where are you going to play? Where's Madueke going? Is he going to be very expensive backup? I know the stories have been, he's going to start a lot of games, etc., etc. But like right now, people are looking at this and going, well, we've got this very expensive backup for Bukayo Saka. Could Arsenal, with all the resources available to them, scouting data, etc., not have found a player at another club for, let's say, half of that price? And then it makes more sense as a deal to fill that role within the squad that we currently are looking at Madueke filling.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And like, again, if I was applying a critique of the signing, I think I would say that it does feel a little unimaginative. I find it hard to believe there's not, as you suggest, somebody in France, somebody in South America who's 30 million quid and potentially has even more upside to them. And wouldn't have come from Chelsea, and then I wouldn't have that sort of odd feeling in my stomach that I do about it. Yeah. And but I think I think there are reasons that it's a Premier League player, because I do think that the sort of, for me, the big takeout from Arsenal's business is that they're all in. They are all in on winning it next season. For sure. I mean, that really is the through line. When you look at Zubamendi, who's 26, Norgard is coming in a bit experienced. You've got that experience back up in Kepa. Madueke, whatever, he knows the Premier League and can produce. There is, I guess, an inconsistency to elements of his game, but he can produce. He does score goals. He also brings a lot of pace, which is something we don't have a huge amount of. Nope. In this team, so there is that. And Gyökeres is the elder of the two strikers that Arsenal were most strongly considering. Yeah, they've gone with the experience, the more ready-made, proven player. Mosquera, should it get done, is the outlier. That is the outlier. That is the sort of punt on developing talent, really.
Yeah, maybe Madueke is a little bit in that bracket as well, but, 23. But I know where you're coming from with Mosquera, but I also think that's kind of how you do that. That is how you address that situation in the squad where you want to maintain the depth that you have at right back with Ben White and Jurriën Timber and not look at them as auxiliary centre halves, if at all possible. Like, it's not that they can't play there, they can and have done and could do a good job there. But I think if last season taught us anything, it is that there is a need to timeshare the minutes more than we did last season, right? And part of that was because of injuries, but part of it as well was because we just did not have the options. We did not have the options. I mean, do you think that the injury issues that we faced last season have played a part in how they're putting the squad together for next season?
Feels like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I one of my sort of working theories is that every Mikel Arteta summer is kind of an antidote to the previous season.
Yeah, reaction in a way, yeah.
A reaction, yeah. And sometimes that's not always a good thing. I know it's sort of logical, like, oh, you see a problem, you fix it. But like sometimes there are other issues that have not been addressed, or like you over-calibrate in one direction or whatever it might be. You over-remedy. What's the word for that? I don't know. There's probably a good word. Overcorrect. I think that's better. But, it's very difficult to not look at this summer's business and to see the clear through line from last season. I mean, and we might balk at the price tag for Madueke, but what happened last season? We lost Bukayo Saka for a protracted period of time. And this just feels like an insurance policy against that.
Yeah.
In the same way that, I'm trying to think, Kepa is an insurance policy against the issues we had bringing in a keeper last season and the risk that we had of playing David Raya regularly. And when it gets to the Mosquera deal, like, I find it hard to imagine you'll find anyone who'll take issue with that signing. Like, it's
there'll be someone. Don't worry about it. There's fucking some cunt somewhere fucking raging into his camera. Yeah. But no, I know what you mean. I think it just is an eminently sensible.
It's an interesting profile of player for a Premier League club is looking like a really affordable price. I don't want him to play 30 games next season in the Premier League. Touch wood, that doesn't happen because I don't think he's ready for it. But he's a player who over the next year or two might develop into something very, very handy. So
yeah.
It's interesting, and the squad has a different look to it.
Sure,
and that makes it. I think that's quite exciting.
Yeah, I mean, people, like we said, 6 players, potentially 7 players coming in, and from that aspect, people will look at the influence of Andrea Berta, who is the sporting director. And listen, we've been here and done that a little bit before, haven't we? The old summer of Don Raúl, which didn't work out as great as we thought it was. But he has certainly, at least from the outside, brought a I don't know, decisiveness, not the right word, because I'm sure this is a club plan and he's front and center. You know what I mean? Every time a player is announced, he's the guy in the photos. So, it's looking like a good summer for him, but there is a flip side as well, isn't there? That if we talk about maybe a market opportunity a little bit later in the window, we need to be positioned financially to be able to react to that if it becomes an option for us. Therefore, people will now, as is inevitable, once you get the things that you want to get done, people say, now, what about this? So the outgoings element of things, are you hearing anything? Are you expecting anything? Will we read anything into who goes on tour and who doesn't go on tour? Because there are players who, when you look at the squad, Zinchenko, Lokonga, Vieira, Karl Hayne, Reece Nelson. Like, if those guys want to play football next season, they are going to have to go elsewhere. Regular football. Like, if they want to play week in, week out, the reality of their situations and the way Arsenal have put this squad together means that along with the club, maybe along with their agents, they need to be putting out the feelers for destinations unknown, but somewhere new, right?
Yeah, I don't know how the club are going to handle that. I mean, they're in La Manga at the moment doing their pre-season or early pre-season warm weather training camp. I bet it's bloody warm, to be honest with you. A number of those players are out there, aren't they? Karl Hein certainly is there. Reece Nelson. I'm not entirely sure of the others. Sambi, I think, is out there as well. So will they be on that plane to Singapore? I'm not sure at this point in time. I mean, last summer, a number of academy players went as part of the group, didn't they? There were players missing from international tournaments and the like.
Sure.
So we saw, obviously, Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Neri, but we saw Aidan Heaven.
Josh Nichols.
Trying to think, that may have been it. But, perhaps those spots in the squad will be taken by senior players whose future may not be certain, or maybe some will be left at home. But clearly, we've got some questions about sales, and I think that's not for the first time in recent summers. That's going to be an interesting area to look at, for sure. Okay,
well, just before we go into the break, I want to go back to something you said about Gyökeres and how this was an opportunity for him, right, at this point in his career. And I wonder, did you watch the Christian Norgard video where you got that sense very much from him that at 31 years of age, the chance to join a big club like Arsenal was something just too special for him to turn down. The sort of behind the scenes videos that they do for these signings are really good, really nice content. And he was there with his family, his little kid. But that desire to want to be at Arsenal, it's hard not to sort of feel that when you look at someone looking awestruck at the shirt with their name on the back.
Yeah, there's a sweet moment where his I think it's his son, young child, walks out in an Arsenal kit and kind of bursts into tears, which either means he's very moved by the prospect of joining Arsenal, or he's a secret Spurs fan, and that sight was utterly horrifying to him.
I think it's
I think it is very much the former, and it is very sweet and very touching. And we had a big conversation last week about some less fun, much more serious news. But it is nice to see in a different context, what the club can mean to people and how positive it can be. And he clearly is kind of incredibly enthused about the prospect of being here next season. And I think as fans, as I said on Gyökeres, that's what we want to see, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I saw some of the pictures from the training camp as well. Boys looking in good shape. Kai Havertz bulked up a bit.
Yeah,
Martin Odegaard.
When Gyökeres is about to turn up, so they all need to bulk up a bit.
Yeah, they're all going to look puny compared to Gyökeres as soon as he gets his shirt off. But yeah, hopefully they're having a good time out there and training well. I can see Norgard, I can see Zubamendi, Max Daumann, Big Gabby out there as well.
He's almost guaranteed to be in Asia. I'd be incredibly surprised if he's not, on the subject of kind of academy players who might make the cut. Because there's a number out in Spain, aren't there? I saw George Bird have been reporting on that.
Yeah.
About half a dozen or so. But I think he really is the one who I'd be really surprised if they don't take him on tour.
Yeah, all right. Well, look, we'll get the squad list, no doubt, a bit later in the week, towards the weekend when they head off to Singapore and then on to Hong Kong. Is that all the news before we go into the questions? Is there anything else? Has anything happened?
Like I said, it's been a spree. It's been mad.
Hang on, let me just check. I'll check the Reddit because news gets on there very quickly.
Breaking news 6 minutes ago. Agreement in place for Mosquera.
That's Fabrizio Romano. Cristhian Mosquera.
Fabrizio.
Here we go. Verbal agreement in place with formal steps to follow. 15 million fee plus add-ons, total package under 20 million euros, long-term deal in place. Mosquera only wanted Arsenal. That's the buzzword of the summer as well, isn't
it? These people only ever want Arsenal.
Yeah, they only wants Arsenal. Not a mention of concrete in that update, which is quite disappointing. But
I think that is all the news. There's been a bit of positive news reported on Ethan Ranieri's contract.
Yes, I saw that.
There's some progress there, which would be great. I think talks are ongoing. Yeah, there's been a lot of news, Andrew.
There has.
Where I'm more cynical, I would say it's remarkably changed the news agenda around Arsenal in the space of a week.
That's not your style, though. You're not.
I'm not a cynical man.
You're
famously,
not. You're very much not.
They got to get those bums on seats for that plane to Singapore.
All right. Well, look, why don't we take a little break here? We'll come back with some of the questions about bits and pieces of the news that have happened over the weekend. We'll do that in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part 2 of the show where we answer the questions that you sent to us on Blue Sky at gunnarblog.bsky.social and at arseblog.com. Also on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. James, I'm going to go first because I like this question from Vinception. Okay. And he says, what remaining signings would it take for you to consider this a 10 out of 10 window from the reasonably available players on the market? And I kind of felt like maybe I need to broaden that out a little bit. What would it take for this window to be a 10 out of 10 window for you? Not just signings, because I think there are probably other things that we would like to see get done by Andrea Berta. We already touched on sales a little bit, but there's some contracts too.
Yeah, I mean, the sales thing is like, again, the rational part of me cares about that. There is an emotional part of me that's like, it's not my money. I mean, it is my money in that we all put money into the club as fans, but, it's kind of, I'm less sort of exercised about the sales. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm not going to turn up with a placard and a pitchfork demanding the sale of Reece Nelson.
Get that Zinchenko out.
Yeah.
I know.
I'd like it, and it would be good business and stuff like that if we could do those things.
Sure.
But, and of course, it is important. It affects your ability to do more business in future windows. But just being totally honest with you, when I think about what makes it a 10 out of 10, I'm more focused on the ins than the outs.
Okay, so then deal with it in that sense. What more
contracts
would
be a thing. Ethan would be a great one to get done, and obviously Saliba and Saka.
Yeah.
I hope I haven't left anyone out there, but Saliba and Saka renewals, they are huge for this club.
Sure.
And if they could get done within the window, that would be fantastic. I'm a little bit... I'm open-minded about whether or not that will happen. I don't know. They both went later than that last time, didn't they?
Yeah.
And the same is true with Ethan, where he went very close on the pro deal. So let's see. I certainly think the Ranieri one sounds like it's the one that's made the most progress and is the closest. So those would be the 3 contracts that you'd like. In terms of new additions. I mean, I don't want to be greedy, Andrew, but if there's ever a time to be greedy, it's in answer to this question, right?
Yeah.
I think I would like another, in a dream scenario, I'd kind of like another wide forward option and a sort of creative 8/10 type.
So both of those?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But, that would then surely necessitate selling somebody.
Oh, yeah. In that case, it would, yeah.
So you'd need to make room, let's say, just, hypothetically speaking, because he has been linked with a move to Turkey, which I don't think is going to go through because I think they're signing, Fenerbahce signing Asensio, is that right?
Yeah, I don't think that's on at all.
Yeah.
That Trossard Fenerbahce one.
But I saw like Bayern Munich mentioned. Again, I don't know how true that is, but he is the one maybe being linked with a move away. So is he the guy, that if you sell Trossard, you then add another wide player as well as an 8/10, in the mold of whether it's Eberechi Eze or somebody else?
Yeah. I mean, look, let's just use names that are out there in the market because it makes it a bit easier. Like if we were to buy Eze and I don't know, Rodrigo, and I mean this is FIFA Championship Manager bullshit. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying this is what should happen, but you asked me what would make it 10 out of 10, which is perfect. If we were to buy two players like that and sell, say, a Trossard, that would be an astonishing window.
Yeah.
I don't think that will happen. I think we might get one more signing beyond the ones that we've talked about in part one. And if it was to be Eze, I mean, he ticks both those boxes. He can be a left winger or a number 10. So maybe he is the ideal. Maybe if it was just Eze,
what are you giving the window?
What did you say?
What are you giving the window if it's just only Eze?
I mean, it'd be right. It'd be high. Zubimendi, Eze, Gyökeres would be your sort of like big potential marquee additions, and then behind that you've got Mosquera, Kepa, Norgard, Madueke. I think that'd be a 9. I mean, obviously you never know, but
yeah,
that would be very strong, very strong.
It would certainly give us plenty of depth.
What? Well, first I'll ask you, what makes it a 10 out of 10 for you?
I think if we could get Saka, Waneri and Saliba signed up and make one more signing, like of a high level, in the attacking third, or somebody who can bring something different to the attacking third, I would say it's pretty close to a 10 out of 10 window, to be honest. Yeah. Because we've not only added to the squad in a significant way, provided our best players with cover and depth, and hopefully players who can also come in and contribute and play a part in the success we all want Arsenal to have next season. We will have secured key players for the future as well. Which sort of leads me to another question. Can I ask you this one? It comes from Harry Power 23543. It says, what does it say about the status of Arsenal now that our big players are not being strongly linked with moves to other clubs? Summers in the past have been plagued with rumours of our brightest and best being linked with moves, but in the last few years, this no longer happens. Does it show how far we've come?
Sorry, Andrew, I was daydreaming then. Ask me again. What our players don't want to go places?
No. But the players are not being linked with moves elsewhere. Whereas previous summers, your best players, were being linked with moves elsewhere. Is it like Arsenal is actually the place to be kind of vibe?
Well, there's only so many places you can go now. I think if Real Madrid hadn't bought Dean Huyson as early as they did, we probably would have read about Saliba and them a lot more.
Sure.
I think, but Saka, 12 months out of his contract, there's not been a peep about Madrid or Man City. I'm touching wood, by the way. I'm not trying to tempt fate here.
Fabrizio Romano, Barcelona moving for Bukayo Saka.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of reasons for that. Yes, it's partly about where Arsenal are at and where they've got to, and the fact that, there aren't many places you can go where you're better off. Financially, that's certainly true. Like, outside the Premier League, where can you go to get paid the sort of money that you'll get at Arsenal? Not many. PSG, maybe, but not many places. Maybe Madrid if you're like one of the top stars and you've joined on a Bosman. But
Barcelona giving you shares.
Yeah, bits of Catalonia. The crown jewels. Yeah, it's yeah. So I think that's a factor. I think as well there's this sense of the Arsenal project is incomplete. like these players haven't won anything. And I can't imagine that many of them will contemplate going until they do. I think that will be an interesting point. Like, if we win a couple of things, you know, and maybe we have like three years, say, of success. Wow, can you imagine? That would be lovely.
Yes.
A little sort of dynasty of our own. I think then it's like, you know, you start to hear talk about new challenges or a different experience in another country. Right? That will come, I'm sure. If success happens, that could be part of it. But I just think there's a feeling that Arsenal are on the precipice of something. And I don't think somebody like Bukayo Saka or even William Saliba will want to go without kind of ticking that off on their CV.
Or until it never happens. You know, there's the other
exactly.
side.
That's the other side of the coin.
But so what you're saying is, let's keep not winning so we can keep our best players.
Well, no, because as you say, that's got it's you know.
Yeah, it's a balance, isn't it?
It's perilous because if Arsenal don't win anything next year, you know, I think we might start to see some of those stories. You know. Mm-hmm. But I think this summer, I don't know. I just get the sense that people feel like
unfinished business.
It's unfinished business. We're close, and I think that people want to see it through. But you know, yeah, there's only a handful of teams in the world who could buy a Bukayo Saka or a Declan Rice, or a Saliba or an Odegaard. Or even a David Raya, I think. You know, it's select company.
Sure.
And even Gabriel Martinelli, you know, people are saying, could he go? Will he be sold? It's like, it's got to be the right move. You know, like he's happy at Arsenal. He loves it at Arsenal. He's been really clear about that in everything he's ever said. He wants to stay at Arsenal. He wants to win things with Arsenal. I doubt very much he wants to go, you know, and play in a inferior league or for an inferior team. Sure. So, yeah, I think, you know, we've come a long way. And I guess the market does reflect that. I had a question here about sales.
Okay.
From Ro. Good day, Andrew and James. With money being spent at a pretty pace at the moment, can you foresee any sales? Well, yeah, we've answered that. It's great to see all incomings and makes me think of our bench when football matches roll around again. Do you think the club are happy to forego selling anyone this season to have the bench much stronger? The obvious point is having far more players able to deputise if injuries happen and or needing to change a game. Have a great day. If we sell the players, have we undone the depth? You know what I mean?
Well, Reece Nelson didn't play for us last season.
No.
Alexander Zinchenko barely played. Albert Sambi-Lokonga didn't play for us last season. Carl Hayne didn't play for us last season. Fabio Vieira didn't play for us last season. Mm-hmm. So I think we are adding to the squad. So what we're looking at doing is selling players who are peripheral. The
short answer is we do have to abide by the 25-man squad rules, like everybody else.
Yeah. Apart from Chelsea.
Yeah, of course. It's 17, am I right? 17 non-homegrown players, I believe, in the Premier League squad.
What's the Madueke story about him not being homegrown?
He's not homegrown.
How can he not be homegrown?
Because he left at 16, which means that he didn't spend the requisite, in the same way that like David Raya is homegrown, and I think even William Saliba qualifies as homegrown through some metric, but basically he didn't spend enough years in the English development system.
Right.
So in Premier League terms or UEFA terms, I don't think he does qualify as homegrown.
That's so weird.
It is odd, isn't it?
England international, born in Barnet.
But then David Raya does. Yeah. Spain international. So I guess it offsets itself.
Maybe the rule is fucking stupid.
I mean, one interesting one I don't even know would be Tommy Setford. Like, does Tommy Setford qualify? Came over at 18 from Ajax. Not sure.
Yeah,
I genuinely have to check on that. I would imagine if Madueke doesn't, there's a chance that Setford doesn't.
Yeah, maybe not.
Anyhow,
sales.
I
think they will be keen to sell some of these guys because their future lies elsewhere, and I think
all the loan boys surely are on the market.
Yeah.
You know, your Sambis, your
Vieiras,
your Haynes.
Even though there's only one of each of them.
Yeah.
Why are we doing it in plural?
It's just a football thing, isn't it?
Know, yeah.
But, I think that's true. But what about the players who haven't been... What about the players who've got the proper background on their ArsenalPlayer.com photo? You know what I mean? Like the guys who have actually been here and part of it. Just noticed that Zinchenko on the Arsenal.com players page hasn't got an updated profile picture.
What does it mean?
What does it mean? But poor old Sambi, he's still got like
2 years ago.
He's got 2 years ago. Yeah, he's got a red background. But like, what about those players with the white background and the current kit on? Are any of them going to go?
The only one I can really think of is Kivior.
Yeah. I mean, Zinchenko should have the right background and the proper kit. I don't know why he hasn't got that. But Zinchenko and Kivior, of the ones who were with the squad last season, they would be the question marks. And then Martinelli Trossard discussion, I guess.
There's a lot of inconsistency in the background of these pictures. Kepa,
I know. What are they doing to us here?
Norgard, Zubimendi, maybe because they're new signings this summer, all have a dark background. And the rest
I think
of
that
them,
means they're evil.
Well, that's good. We need a bit more evil in our team, you know?
Yeah, the new boys have got a black background or like a grey background. It's... Guys, sort it out.
We need, what's the word? Consistency.
Consistency is key.
You can't win a Premier League if they all have different backgrounds.
And Zinchenko's picture is like... That is odd, isn't it? It's a bit of an outlier.
Yeah. Because I presume he must have had his picture taken with the rest of them.
Maybe they just didn't get a good one on the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in every one, his eyes were doing that thing where they're like half open, half closed, or like he was sort of, you know, he was eating.
Put the apple down.
Yeah.
And get your picture taken.
They were like, he was like, I'm not happy with these. We've got to go again.
Fucking Stu and Pricey going out of their minds.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know.
I think Kivior is maybe the only one from that list who I could see going beyond, you know, Trossard, who we've already mentioned as a possible departure, but
yeah, I'm doing some digging around that because he was very much in contract talks with the club, you know, about this sort of pay rise. And then he changed agents.
Yes.
All of a sudden, a few weeks ago. So yeah, I'm trying to ascertain what's going on there because it's a little bit confusing. And I think, you know, you'll remember from when we did our predictions that I think Kivior could well stay.
Yes.
I mean, I think that one's 50-50 really, but yeah. Do you think the squad could absorb selling Zinchenko and Kivior without signing another defender?
Well, we're signing.
Will we go back into the left back market?
The left back market. We do love a left back. I think we could. Yes, I think we could because Mosquera can play on both sides of central defence, right?
Yeah.
You've got Calafiori. You've got Miles Lewis-Skelly. Yeah, I think we could.
You've got Ryan Bertrand's son. in the academy.
That's right. Saw that over the weekend.
Marcel Washington, I think.
Dude sounds like a fucking jazz great, doesn't he?
He sounds, but it's a very cool name.
A new album from Marcel Washington dropping on Decca Records. Yeah, I mean, I think we could, but I would have no problem with Kiwior staying. My thing all along has been, if I'm Kiwior and I've sort of raised my profile over the last couple of months of the season and I want to play regular football, then I would probably be open to leaving. You know, it's not me wanting to get rid of Kiwior per se.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what does he want from his career, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that. So yeah, it's interesting. Let's see. I don't know. My hunch is Kiwi will stay, but it could go either way. Genuinely, I really don't know. Okay.
What about this then? Because we had a couple of questions like this. One from Dan Meyer on Blue Sky. He is at Dan Meyer. He says, morning, gents. With Gyökeres coming in as the new starting number 9, where do you see Havertz fitting in next season, especially given how much Mikel Arteta rates him? And there was one on the Discord as well from Greylow. He says, how many minutes does Gyökeres play? I'm all for the signing. Is he an automatic starter? He says, I'm a bit perplexed about where he's going to play. You know, the question, Havertz spot is the most obvious, but I have a hard time believing that Havertz gets dropped to the bench. Does Havertz go into midfield and push someone out there? People are sort of asking, I guess, you know, how do you fit Havertz and Gyökeres into the squad?
And what does this mean for Arsenal's number 9, Mikel Merino? Well, let me answer your questions with a question, just to sort of open the discussion even further. Ollie O'Baisley on Blue Sky says, I asked this. No, he actually has written his sentence properly. I just
said it badly.
He said, I asked this last week, but it's even more relevant now. Should we complete the Gyökeres signing and all the squad are fit and ready? Who are you starting up front at Old Trafford, Havertz or Gyökeres?
Oh, great question. I guess it depends how pre-season goes a little bit as well, doesn't it? What way the team is taking shape. Yeah. You know, how well he settles in. And I mean, there is something about, you know, the first game of the season, you need a goal, you bring on your big summer signing, scores the goal. Everyone's saying, what an inspired piece of business that was. He doesn't score again until December, but that's a different discussion. Who am I starting? That's a great question. I mean, I think that your preference is to sort of go with the new guy, right? You want to see what the new guy can do and what the new guy can bring into the team. I can't say I'm not worried about it, though, one way or the other, to be honest.
I can tell you now, if it's Havertz, the Twitters will be letting Mikel know what they think about that, I suspect. As much as people like Havertz, there's always, at the start of every season, clamour for the new signing.
For the new guy. That's exactly the word I was looking for, by the way.
But, I mean, let me ask you this, Andrew. He says, in another attempt to avoid answering any of these questions. But balls on the keyboard.
Right.
Is he going to be good, Gyökeres? Do you think he's going to be good?
It's a really tough question to answer dispassionately because we've just announced that we're signing a striker for the first time in, 2 years? And like one of the few forwards that we've signed in Mikel Arteta's tenure as manager. The forward signings have been few and far between. So this morning I'm sitting here and I'm excited, I'm enthused, I'm glad we've got that gap filled. And I can't envisage anything other than him banging in a load of goals. I watched some compilations of his time at Sporting, by the way, over the weekend. The man can hit a fucking football. He really can. So I think right now, I have to think he's going to be good. I do, I know that worry that people have when a player comes from a less competitive league. than the Premier League. I think the level, generally speaking, in the Premier League is going to be higher than it is in Portugal. You know, the gulf between the best teams in the Premier League and maybe the bottom teams in the Portuguese league is really big. And you've seen players who've come and struggled with the pathway or the step up to the Premier League in the past. Like Lacazette was a great example, right? Scored goals for us, but really took his time to become a 90-minute player. And I'm not sure he ever really got to that, you know? So physically, I think you can see players who find it hard to make the step up to the Premier League. I do not worry for a second about Gyökeres physically being able for the Premier League, because just look at him, right? So I don't worry about him from that point of view. The other thing is technically, you know, is he going to do it against better defenders and better teams and more organised defences? I don't see him scoring at the same rate that he scored for Sporting. No chance at all. But I do think he could be a 20-25 goal season or goal a season striker for Arsenal. And I think that would be good. But I do also think minutes are going to be shared between him and Havertz. And, you know, we're going to be able to maybe do things a little bit differently. Bit of old 4-4-2 on the cards maybe at some point. If you need to win a game, 2 big men up top.
Yeah, I mean, they're quite different big men. I mean, Gyökeres doesn't score headers, you know.
Yeah, that's a weird quirk about his goal scoring, yeah.
Maybe that will change at Arsenal with a team playing a different style, facing different sorts of defences. I think I'm with you in that right now, I mean, nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. But I feel like he's going to be good. I feel like when you get to that age and you're scoring goals as consistently as he is, it's like, I feel like it's like you've kind of figured it out. You've kind of figured it out. You know, the movement, the awareness, the confidence, it's all in place. And I'm not saying he's going to come in and score 50, but like you, I don't see why he couldn't come in and score more than 20, for sure. Which, to be fair, Kai Havertz might well have done last season.
Yeah,
not for his injury.
Yeah, not for the injury,
At Old Trafford, I think it totally depends on pre-season and like how quickly Gyökeres adapts to our game, how quickly we adapt to his. If we don't, I don't think Mikel Arteta will have any hesitation about playing Kai Havertz. I think he'll be very comfortable doing that and taking his time if he needs to. But if Gyökeres comes in and bangs in goals against, you know, Spurs and Milan and whoever else we play in pre-season, I think it'll be difficult to resist. And what it means for Havertz, I'm actually really interested to see what it might mean for the midfield. Like, because Mikel Arteta picks Kai Havertz. Like, when he's fit, until now, a bit like Granit Xhaka, if Havertz has been available, he's been one of the first names on Mikel Arteta's team sheet. That's how it feels to me anyway. Like, you know, he doesn't take him off. He doesn't ever take him off, really. So I can't imagine he's just going to sort of fade into the periphery. So I wonder, will we see him a bit more in midfield? But then that has ramifications because, you know, we've just bought Martin Zubimendi to sit at the base of midfield, which means Declan Rice is probably going to be playing ahead. So
I think this is the big test for Mikel Arteta this season ahead. That he has, I'm not saying he's in a comfort zone, but I think he has to, having signed the kind of players that we've signed so far or are going to sign in this window, which we spoke about in the first half, about being as part of a big push to get this team over the line and win silverware and achieve success, right? The other aspect of that is, if you have a big squad, you have to use a big squad. And for various reasons, and I'm not saying they're all in his control, we've had this discussion in summers before, and what tends to happen is, as the season goes on, the group of players that he is either willing to use or has available to him to use has shrunk, right? Yeah. And so you get this small group of players, and I think ultimately that has an impact on performance, particularly as you get towards the end of a season. So I think what we're looking at this season is we might have games where Havertz starts and Gyökeres is on the bench, and Gyökeres starts next week and Havertz is on the bench, and we might see Madueke start ahead of Saka, depending on who the opposition is, or those sort of midfield combinations that you've talked about. Excuse me. I think he really does have to use the full extent of his squad next season and do it effectively. And it's not easy. I think the temptation as a manager is to stick with what you know and what works. Team went out and did really well, won a game 4-0. Well, your reaction to that is, well, they just did that. I'm going to reward the guys. They start the next game, and it becomes more difficult for players on the fringes or the peripheries to have a look in. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how he uses this big squad and uses these credible options for players that he might himself consider first choice.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. The idea that the squad kind of distills over the course of the season, and shrinks down. And if we can avoid that happening, we'll be in a much better position. I think that the Havertz as the kind of left eight supporting striker thing isn't dead. And I think we'll see it at times next season. Maybe not always from the start of games, but maybe later in games. I think that will have a place. So, whether you call that a front two or 1+1 or whatever it is, I'm intrigued to see how that plays out. But Kai Havertz has been so important to Mikel Arteta, and he likes him so much. There's no way I just see him becoming a backup. Yeah,
discarded as something. I think all the conversations we've had about Arsenal needing a striker, the part of that is we also need depth. We need options. There might be a period of the season when Gyökeres struggles a bit and Havertz gets to play, and the other way around, So
yeah, exactly.
You have to take form.
I know Zubamendi's come in, and it's sort of tempting to imagine, well, he'll just play every single game at the base, but maybe there'll be games where he doesn't, and Declan Rice plays there, and Mikel Merino or Kai Havertz plays in a more advanced midfield role, or Eze or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Ethan Ranieri.
If we sign Eze and Ranieri signs a new contract, and I don't know, nobody's going to be able to predict a lineup next season, which might not be
that's the good thing.
Might not be a bad thing at all. What about this one from GunnarHappen.bsky.social? He says, which other player do you see benefiting most from the arrival of Gyökeres?
I think Odegaard. Because Gyökeres is a runner. Gyökeres is a guy who runs the channels. And I think Odegaard, you'd like to think, is a guy who can find him early.
Yeah.
I always think it's very difficult to judge a number 10 until they've got their number 9. And I hope that Gyökeres can unlock something in Odegaard that we were missing at times last season.
Yeah. Yeah, Odegaard can provide those passes, but for all the concerns we had about his form last season as well, I think in mitigation, when you're not playing with a striker and you're not playing with Bukayo Saka outside you as well, it does become more difficult for a creative player to sort of unpick the defence. You're picking the lock, but there's nobody there, so
he's quick, Gyökeres, as well. That's the thing. The goals he scores. He scores a lot of what we would call Thierry Henry goals, hanging out to the left, diagonal run into the channel, finish across the keeper. He loves those.
Yeah.
And just one other thing well, actually, I've got another question about Gyökeres in a minute, but it's not related to this. But when we played Sporting last season, I think because we're Arsenal fans, there was this kind of narrative of he didn't get a kick, did he? Gabriel and Saliba sure had him locked up, and we battered Sporting, and understand that. I still thought he looked a massive handful in that game.
He was. Yeah.
You were there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was there. And I think there was a run like you say, down that left-hand side, probably from about the halfway line, if I remember correctly. And he ended up hitting the bar. So yeah, he gave them something to think about, and that's always been in the back of my mind when this debate about whether or not he can step up or make the change from the Portuguese league to the Premier League and be successful. I saw him give Saliba and Gabriel plenty to think about, and they are the best central defensive partnership in Europe, basically. So if you can do it to them, you can probably do it to whoever Everton have got. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Or Manchester United. And by the way, if you're looking, if you're still a bit sceptical about Gyökeres, looking for a reason to enjoy this transfer, I don't think that'll be many people, but it's really upset Man United fans.
Did they think they were getting him? Yeah.
They had convinced themselves that he was going to join them. And listen, if you enjoy sort of your Mark Goldbridge clips,
your Mark Goldbridges, the other lads
of the world, get yourself on YouTube, type in Goldbridge Gyökeres. He's been absolutely losing his head about this, as have the rest of the United fans, because they thought while Arsenal were sort of deciding between the two, they might steal a march and sign this player. Obviously, Amorim had him at Sporting. Yeah. And instead, there's a very good chance they'll be up against him in that first Premier League weekend of the season. So
they're gonna fucking hate his hat trick, aren't they?
It's gonna be a sore one for them. And I had another Gyökeres question here, which is JD in Coquitlam. Don't know where that is.
In where?
Is it a real place? Coquitlam? It's in British Columbia, Canada. There you go.
There you go.
I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
Is this on the Discord?
How do you pronounce Coquitlam? Coquitlam. Coquitlam. Anyway. So
Francis Coquelin.
He says, how do you pronounce... No, he says, is Viktor Gyokeres our new penalty taker? And Gunnosaurus Rex, in a reply that really made me laugh, said, don't tell Noni.
Don't tell Noni.
Is he our new penalty taker, Andrew?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I watched the compilations of him. He scored quite a lot of penalties.
Yeah.
Sporting got a lot of fucking penalties in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, he has genuinely scored about 50 penalties over the last few years. but I think he's not.
I think Bukayo Saka is currently the number one penalty taker, and I think he will back himself to continue that, to be honest. But, you know, we've seen that the Arsenal penalty taking situation can be a fluid thing at times. You know, Odegaard picks up the ball, hands it to Saka, Saka takes it. And we've seen Saka give them to Odegaard, and we've seen Havertz get a penalty here or there as well, you know. So I guess it all depends on the mood of the players and who's feeling in the mood. I don't think Gyökeres would have any doubts about his ability to tuck a penalty away. He's had lots of practice, so I think he'll be involved. But if I'm Bukayo Saka and, you know, I am the number one penalty taker, I'm not giving that up. And I don't want Saka to give that up either.
I think that we should be fluid in all our approach to penalty taking. If Kepa's on the sidelines remonstrating, demanding to come on for a penalty, then let him. If Noni feels like taking one, then who are we to tell him not to? Listen, I think Gyökeres should be our penalty taker. You know this about me.
I know. You're a Saka skeptic.
I bear the scars. I bear the scars of Euro 2020. No, listen, his record's really good. I know it's not rational. Maybe I'm not a rational fan, guys. Maybe that was a crazy thing to say. But I just have that... Just when he steps up, I just don't have that absolute conviction. I'm like, this might be a goal. But, you know, with Gyökeres, I mean, he hits penalties. I hate to say it, a bit like Harry Kane. You know what I mean? Just like that real...
Yeah, power
and conviction. And Yeah, I have a feeling. I'll say this: I have a feeling that by the end of the season, he will be our penalty taker.
Okay. We'll see. Assuming we get any fucking penalties.
Well, yeah, we got to do that first.
Yeah. Steph Metal says, given that Noni Madueke scans perfectly to Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson, Annie, are you okay? Have we underpaid?
Have we underpaid? That is a good point. I look forward to seeing that in like the Inside the Deal read from the Athletic. Arsenal feel that the scansion of Madueke's surname
to a Michael Jackson
at least
song.
An extra 5 million on the deal. Apparently, that's what the add-ons are about. It's all about what chance we come up with.
Yeah, that's it.
And how popular they become.
I was thinking Gyökeres could be a good one as well.
Gyökeres.
Yeah.
So
Club classic from the 90s, James.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. That's probably before your time.
Before my
Maury
time.
Kente is the name of the artist in question, so you can go check that out.
Check it out, kids.
Check it out. That would be a good one. What else?
We did have this question, by the way, which I didn't. I was like, I don't even know if Andrew will answer this. Walking on the Crack said, a question more for Andrew than James.
Uh-oh.
Do you see Gyökeres and get Lee Chapman 1982 flashbacks?
No. No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I was -4 years old, so
yeah.
I don't get flashbacks.
No.
Lee Chapman was in for like a year. Is that right? He came for a year. It was a disaster, and then he left again.
Yeah, that's right. Signed from Stoke, I think. Was it Stoke? I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, I was only 10 or 11, so, you know, I don't remember all the details of that. But
yeah, came from Stoke, and then after one underwhelming year, went on to Sunderland.
Right.
Do you see Gyökeres at Sunderland next season?
Don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think. I can't envisage that. Newcastle, maybe. I don't know. We'd do a swap deal for Isak. I did. There was one I was going to ask you, actually. There was one directed to you.
Oh, no.
It was a question more for James from Groninguner. Wonder where he's from. Anyway.
No idea.
He says, why are transfer fees announced as undisclosed when generally transfer fees are pretty well reported through variations that seem, although with variations that seem to portray the best outcome for either the buying or the selling club? Assume those inside the industry know what the clubs spend and receive.
I would say no, actually. So I would say that most journalists don't know definitively because they're private companies for the most part, and they're under no obligation to tell us or lay bare their expenditure. So I think there's always a bit of spin, often a bit of spin around transfer numbers. The Gyökeres one will be different because as far as I know, Sporting are listed on the stock exchange. At the very least, they're owned by their members. So they typically declare exactly what the deal is.
Okay.
Arsenal have no such need. Another reason I think that transfer reporting around fees is a bit vague is that I think a lot of transfer news is generated by the agent industry and community. Right. But agents, remarkably, are not always privy to the exact deal between the clubs. Like you would think they would know. And sometimes they do, because sometimes the agent is brokering the deal. Sometimes the agent is the go-between between the two clubs, trying to get them to meet in the middle. But other times the agent's like, I don't know, it's between them. I know they were looking for this and I know they wanted to pay this, but so, you know, that information line is not always the most clear. And then you get into the clubs and what you get often is like a bit of a briefing war, really, where all the clubs involved are spinning it in the way that makes them look good. And actually, like, if they're not obliged to disclose the numbers involved, then they, you know, they probably can afford to have a little bit of fun with it. Not too much because, you know, there'll be discrepancies, but whenever you see like different numbers around a transfer fee, I think it's fair to conclude that it's probably clubs doing a bit of positioning.
Yeah. we spent much less than you thought.
Yes.
And then the buying club is they spent way more than we wanted.
But, I think by and large, I think the broad point of like reporting, I think has got to the point where I don't think we see massive inaccuracies. Like going way back, there are some Arsenal deals that it's like, I don't think anyone knows. Like, I remember about like Jose Antonio Reyes or Andrea Sharvin, there'd be like £10 million discrepancies in what we may or may not have paid. I can't see that happening in the sort of modern era of reporting.
No, there's just so much detail now, isn't there?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
But
there's an industry around the detail and...
Exactly. Yeah. But if you're wondering why those discrepancies do occur, I think those are some of the reasons.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I think we'll leave it there. There's going to be plenty going on this week. As we normally do over on Patreon, we will have new player podcasts for all of the new players that we're about to sign and announce this week. So if you want to get on board with that, it's just $6 a month plus VAT where applicable. You get access to all that content, all the stuff we do during the season, and as well, it helps support everything that we do on Arseblog. We've got no ads on the site, remember, so we make everything as nice as possible for you guys. If you'd like to support us, it's patreon.com/Arseblog. It's going to be a busy week. Got to save some of my voice for that, so we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
And I'll be in Singapore.
Oh, yeah. So will I.
Exactly.
We will be in Singapore.
We will be in Singapore. So see some of you there, hopefully.
We're staying in Raffles in the presidential suite. So feel free to just call on in.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah.
All right. Catch you on the next one. Bye-bye, I guess.